Welcome to Reach for the Top, the game in which some of the area's brightest students have an opportunity to demonstrate their knowledge. 24 teams originally entered into our preliminary elimination, and 8 teams have made it to the provincial finals. Now, let's meet today's contestants.
From Martingrove Collegiate Institute in Etobicoke, let's meet John Cho, Mark Castater, Ben Kasarevic, and Mike Milliton, and their coach, Pat Beecham. From Tagwi Secondary School in Cornwall, let's meet Alan Coleman, Neil Wheeler, Claude Ferret, and Peter Simard, and their coaches, Dan Maloney and Gil Boyce. And I'm Mark Wade. Welcome to the final, the provincial final game. Things are tense here. Let's see if we can relieve some of the tension with some questions. Good luck, panel. According to the Times of London, which member of the royal family was busiest in Neil?
Prince Charles.
No. Attending 665 official events in 1988. Martingrove. Mark.
Sarah Ferguson.
No. Princess Anne. Diana was next with 248, in case you're keeping track. Who was Canada's first Attorney General? Neil?
Roy McMurtry.
No. He appointed himself. Martingrove.
Sir Johnny MacDonald.
Yeah, right. What first did swimmer Gertrude Eder? Mark?
Crossing the English Channel.
Correct. Where in the body do we find the jugular? Neil?
In the throat.
Good enough. The jugular veins are located in the neck. What is the Japanese wine sake? Peter?
Sake.
No. Made from?
Rice.
John? Correct. Yeah, fermented rice. Okie dokie. I'd like you to meet our judge, Steve Officer. Now, you seem awfully cool and collected for the tension that you must be under today.
I don't have to answer any of these questions.
I guess that makes it a little easier for you.
Well, I know I'm going to be busy, but I say the pressure's on them, not me.
That's true. This is the provincial trophy, the Reach for the Top trophy. This is the trophy that the winner of today's game will take back to their school, and that team will go on to compete against 7 other teams from across our country.
It's going to be an exciting time in Winnipeg this year.
For sure, yeah. We'll get down to the questions panel right after a couple of important announcements.
Lock it, wind it, release it, and watch the amazing Cable 6.
You're getting good at that. Okay, on to some people. That's the topic here, panel. People. Which American film director introduced the technique of flashback? Neil.
Spielberg.
No.
A flashback?
Orson Welles.
No.
D.W. Griffith in Birth of a Nation and Intolerance. Which U.S. president obtained for America the right to build the... Mark?
Theodore Roosevelt.
Correct. That's the one. The right to build the Panama Canal brought the Russo-Japanese War to an end in 1905. He was a busy man. Which English scientist was founder of the Royal... Ben?
Newton? No.
The founder of the Royal Society and discovered the chemistry law stating that... Claude?
Dalton.
No.
That a volume of a fixed... I guess we've done that, haven't we? We're looking... The question was, the volume of a fixed quantity of gas at constant temperature is inversely proportional to its pressure. Robert Boyle was the man. Classical music. Here's a piece. This dance from the opera Mazeppa, Neil?
Time.
Is the work of what 19th century composer? Martingrove. John?
Gershwin?
No.
Tchaikovsky. It's called the Cossack dance after a cavalry unit. Neil?
Of Russia.
Correct. Yeah. Here's Scramble for 5 points. What important navigable river rises in Switzerland and empties? Mark?
The Rhine.
Correct. Okay, these deal with the Rhine, and they're yours, Martingrove. What river meets the Rhine at the West German city of Koblenz?
The Rhone.
No.
The Moselle. What was the name of the flaxen-haired siren who was said to lure boatmen on the Rhine to their deaths at the foot of the towering cliff?
Nymph? No.
Lorelei. What crop predominates on the hills of the Rhine Valley south of Cologne?
Grapes?
Correct.
Yeah, right. Wine grapes. Trigonometry. What's the sine 360? What, Neil?
0.
Correct.
What is sine squared x? Mark?
2
No.
cosec.
What is sine squared x plus cos squared x? Neil?
1.
Correct.
What is cos 45 degrees? Neil?
1 over root 2.
Correct.
Following questions relate to the events leading up to and including the Battle of Hastings in 1066. What monarch did William, Mike?
Harold.
Correct. The events leading up to and including the Battle of Hastings are portrayed... Neil?
The Bayeux Tapestry.
Correct.
According to the Bayeux Tapestry, what was the... Neil?
Halley's Comet.
Correct. What landmark in London? Neil?
Trafalgar
Nine.
Square.
Built for and by William stands still as a symbol of his conquest. Mike?
Westminster Abbey.
No.
The Tower of London. Canadian art. Let's have a look at this painting. The paintings of this founding member of the group of 7, Neil,
A.Y. Jackson.
No.
enjoyed great popularity as print reproductions. Name the artist. Martingrove. Ben.
Tom Thompson? No.
Johnston. Francis Johnston. Here's another painting. What Quebec artist uses, Neil,
Krieghoff.
No.
uses an expressionist style to capture wilderness landscapes like this? The painter, Martingrove, Ben,
Sorry?
Coville.
No.
Jacques de Tonnancourt and Laurentian landscape. Another painting here. What other group of 7 member? Mark
Casson.
No.
painted this landscape. Neil.
MacDonald.
No.
Lauren Harris, mountains and lakes. And a 4th. What Canadian watercolorist, Neil,
Klee.
Time.
of the 20s and 30s, painted this work? Ben.
Carr? No.
Milne. David Milne, The Lilies. Biology. Each answer is a word beginning with the letter C. What is the general term for undifferentiated plant cells, Neil,
Cellulose.
No.
which are responsible for secondary growth in roots and stems? Mike.
Collenchima.
No.
Cambium. That's what we were looking for there. What's the term used for the first leaf or leaves in the, Neil,
Time.
first leaf or leaves in the embryos of seed plants? Ben.
Cotyledon.
Correct. What name's given to the green organelles in a plant cell, Mark?
Chloroplast.
Correct.
Okay. On to word puzzles. What letter must be added to the beginning of a word meaning, in tennis, advantage, to create a second word meaning, in ill-bred, Neil?
B.
No.
An ill-bred person, especially one who does not behave in a gentlemanly way toward John.
L.
No.
No, you add a C to add, and you get cad. What letter must be added to the beginning of a word meaning the profoundly tender affection for another person to create a second word meaning gauntlet? Mark.
G.
Correct.
Add G to love, and you get glove. What letter must be added to the beginning of a word meaning the sunken area of a bowling alley behind the pins to create a second word meaning expectorate? Ben.
Why?
I know.
Alan.
S.
S. You add S to pit, and you get pit. Sports. I would be involved in what type of competition if I were using a springboard? Mark?
Diving.
Correct.
And a high board. How many members are there on a free... Neil?
Time.
6.
How many members are there on a freestyle relay team? Martingrove. Mark?
4.
Correct.
In what sport would I be competing if I were doing a triple Lutz? Neil?
Gymnastics.
No.
Triple Lutz. Martingrove. Ben?
Figure skating. Correct.
What are the more commonly known names of the following political figures, all of them deceased? Joseph Brotz. Mark?
Stalin.
No.
Joseph Brotz. Neil?
Tito.
Correct.
Joseph... Neil?
Stalin.
Correct.
Vladimir...
Lenin.
Yes.
Correct.
Okay. Ancient Rome, the first triumvirate. Which member, Neil?
Pompey.
Correct.
Pompey and Julius Caesar were 2 members. Alan.
Crassus.
Correct.
Which Roman orator and statesman, Neil?
Cicero.
Correct.
Got 135 for Martingrove, 130 for Tagwi. Let's see how we do here. Who composed the opera I Pagliacci? Neil.
Leon Cavallo.
Correct. The writer Oscar Wilde was born in which, Neil?
Ireland.
Correct. What does the abbreviation sonar? Mark?
Sorry.
What does the abbreviation sonar stand for? Neil?
Sound navigation radar.
No.
Sound navigation and ranging. Rock star Phil Collins portrays Neil?
Time.
Biggs.
Portrays the Cockney mastermind of England's great train robbery of 1963 in this movie. Name the movie, Mark.
Buster.
Correct. St. Petersburg became Petrograd. Mike?
Revolution.
No.
And finally in 1924, Claude.
Leningrad.
Correct.
That's correct. All right. We'll take a short break and be back with the assigned questions here on Reach for the Top.
Lock it, wind it. Jaro TV, Cable 6.
Just before the assigned questions, here's a man from Earl Hague Secondary School in North York, Matthew Price by name. Matthew, for a couple of years, Earl Hague had done amazingly well on these Reach for the Top provincial finals, and this year not quite as well. What happened?
We screwed up.
There's a man who doesn't beat around the bush.
No.
But it has been a busy time for everybody.
Yeah,
including
a lot of people have sat in this space and talked about, how great it's been and the experience, just the experience of being here and meeting people, but doesn't make up for losing at all, really. No, but in all seriousness, I'd like to wish good luck to both teams that made the finals. I think that's quite an achievement. Martingrove and Tagwi have done just a superb job, and I'd like to see them both win, but unfortunately that can't happen. So.
Couldn't have said it better. Thank you, Matthew. Matthew Price, Earl Hague. Speaking of those two teams, where's the score officially, Steve?
Well, that gives you some insight of just how intensely competitive this series has been. These teams are really looking to win this. I mean, it's been a friendly competition, but it has also been very competitive, and the game here is competitive. Tagwa leads with 160 to 145 for Martingrove.
Into the second half, and the assigned questions we go. The following people have been named in the Bible. They all start with the letter J, and John and Alan, you two are first. This man's faith upheld him through many trials and afflictions. John.
Job.
That's true. This prophet warned God's people of... Alan.
Jeremiah.
Correct. Right. Okay. Mark. Neil. This man was king of Judah between Neil.
Joshua.
No.
King of Judah between 870 and 848 B.C. He's best known for jumping. Who was he, Mark?
Jack.
No.
Jehoshaphat. She was wife of Ahab. Neil.
Jezebel.
Correct.
Okay. Ben and Claude. This man wore clothes made of camel's hair and ate locusts and wild honey. Claude.
John the Baptist.
Correct. This man's last request was to be buried in Egypt. Ben.
Time.
Judas.
He was Joseph's father. Who was he? Claude.
Jacob.
Correct. Mike. Peter. This Jewish woman rescued her people by cutting off the head of the Assyrian general Holofernes. Peter.
Josephine.
No.
Mike.
Julianne.
No.
Judith. He was a descendant of Cain and the supposed inventor of musical instruments, mainly the harp. Who was this individual? Peter.
Judah.
No.
Mike. Jubal. Psychology. Identify the correct psychological term of the following. The individual's conception of the self. Neil.
Time.
Individual's conception of the self. John.
Ego.
Correct. A very severe personality disorder which often shows irrational acts. Mark.
Paranoia.
No.
Irrational acts, bizarre and unrealistic, often dangerous behavior. What is this term? Neil.
Schizophrenia.
No.
Psychosis. The restrictions or don'ts set up by Neil.
Id.
No.
The restrictions or don'ts set up by a society. Martingrove.
Time.
Taboos is what we're looking for there. Current events. In September of 1988, the Ministry of the Environment announced that the deadline for the elimination of lead from gasoline had been moved ahead from 1993 to what year? Alan.
1990.
Correct. Scientific evidence linking lead pollution to what medical problem? Neil.
Alzheimer's disease.
No.
What medical problem? Mike.
Brain damage.
In.
In small children and babies.
That's right. Mental retardation in children. What is the most common automobile-related... Neil.
Acid rain.
No.
The most common automobile-related use of lead today, Martingrove. Ben.
Leaded gas.
No.
In the batteries. Lead-acid battery. Literature. This American writer won a Nobel Prize for literature. Mike.
Steinbeck?
No.
In 1950, two of his stories are The Spotted Horse and Old Man. Who is he? Neil.
John Stein.
William Faulkner. Name this writer who was a statesman. Neil.
John Buchan or Lord Tweedsmuir.
He
No.
was a theater director. He was a scientist. He worked on his epic poem Faust for the greater part of his life. John Cho.
Correct.
Which writer? Looking for a writer who was born in Montreal who authored a book of poetry entitled Flowers for Neil.
Leonard Cohen.
Correct.
Flowers for Hitler. Here's a what year am I question. First clue correctly answered is worth 40 points. The Métis and the Northwests, Neil.
1885.
1885 is correct.
Fantastic.
Okay. Tug was 260, Martingrove 185. And the year was 1885. Pop music of the 50s. We would like you to identify the vocal soloists or the groups in each of the next three selections. Here's selection number 1. Mark.
They're really rocking in.
Time.
Time's up. Neil.
Chuck Berry.
Chuck Berry, Sweet Little 16. Let's try number 2. Ben.
Little Richard.
Correct. Long Tall Sally. Number 3.
See you later, alligator.
Ben.
The Big Bop?
No.
Neil.
Bill Haley and the Comets.
Yeah, right. Okay. For 10 points, identify 3 of the 4 largest islands in Neil.
Greenland, Australia, and Indonesia.
No.
4 largest islands in Canada. Martingrove. Mark.
Baffin, Ellesmere, and Vancouver?
Yes.
Okay. You see them here. Baffin, Victoria, Ellesmere, and Newfoundland. Okay. Canadian museums. One of your favorite topics, I'm sure. Let's see how we do here. The Royal Canadian Mounted Police... Neil?
Calgary?
No.
The Royal Canadian Mounted Police Museum is located in which western city? The Mounted Police headquarters from 1873 to 1920. Martingrove. Ben.
Edmonton?
No.
Regina. In which Ontario city would I find, Ben?
Toronto?
No.
The Canadian Automotive Museum. Tagwi, Neil.
Hamilton?
No.
Oshawa. In 1964, which Canadian financier and manufacturer gave money to the Royal, Neil?
E.P. Taylor.
No.
To the Royal Ontario Museum for the construction of a planetarium? Mark.
McLaughlin.
Correct.
Yeah. Here's a 5-point scramble. Extremely small particles that are the building blocks for all... Neil?
Atoms.
Correct.
All right. These are yours, Tagwi. They deal with atoms. Atom comes from a Greek word meaning... Neil?
Very small or minute.
No.
Indivisible. A combination of atoms is called a... Neil?
A molecule.
Hydrogen and oxygen atoms combine to form a what? Neil?
Water.
Correct. .305 for Tagwi, Martingrove 215. The following questions have answers which begin with the letters G-E-N. What is the science or study of the family... Mark.
Genetics.
No.
Family pedigrees. Neil.
Genealogy.
Correct.
What word means to bend the knee and lower? Neil.
Genuflect.
Correct.
What city is located in... Neil.
Genoa.
No.
In southwest Switzerland. Martingrove. Mark.
Geneva.
Correct.
What is the Italian term for a... Ben.
Geneva? Genoan?
No.
The Italian term for the commander of combined military, naval, and air forces or of several armies. Neil.
Generalissimo.
Correct.
Dances. We would like you to identify the following dances. This is a Polish folk dance. Neil.
The mazurka.
Correct.
A European court dance of the late Neil.
The minuet.
Correct.
Lively 17th century English dance. Neil.
A reel.
No.
Deriving its name from the folk instrument which originally accompanied it. John.
The gavotte.
No.
No, the hornpipe is what we're looking for there. In a recent vote, the two postal units...
Snappers.
No time for postal units. We've got to get on to the snappers. Which Russian ballerina recently returned, Neil?
Baryshnikov.
No.
Recently returned to Leningrad to dance with the Kivov Ballet 18 years after she defected to the West. Martingrove, Ben.
Olgareva?
Correct.
What food group supplies about 50% of... Mark?
Meat.
No.
50% of energy to the human body. Neil.
Carbohydrates.
Correct.
What was the first North American city in 1904, Neil,
Boston.
to host the Summer Olympic Games? Mark?
St. Louis.
Correct. Whose album, Cowboyography, Neil,
Hank Williams
was
Jr.
released with great success in 1986?
Time.
Ian Tyson. Which Canadian gold prospector was murdered in the Bahamas? Ben.
McRae?
No.
In the 1943, the crime has remained unsolved. Tagwa. Neil.
Caribou Cameron.
No.
Sir Harry Oakes. Ernst Winnie is the first capitalist company to set up what particular business? Neil.
Time.
Set up what particular business in Moscow in post-revolutionary times? Martingrove? Ben?
Boutique.
No.
Accountancy. What stockbroker blew the whistle on insider Ben?
Milliken?
No.
On insider trading on the New York Stock Exchange in 1986? Alan?
Ivan Boesky.
Correct. Top fashion model Paulina Alan?
Tom
Time.
Selleck.
Time.
Paulina Povatskova plays the lead in what recent film comedy, Martin?
For Alibi.
Correct.
What U.S. city is the world's largest processor
Wait.
Pittsburgh.
No.
of meat? Claude.
Chicago.
Correct.
Nice.
Who is the patron saint of music? Neil.
St. Cecilia.
What is the capital of Nepal? Ben.
Kathmandu.
Correct.
Clint Eastwood was once mayor of Ben.
Carmen.
No.
Carmel.
Peter.
Carmel.
What instrument is jazz musician Neil?
The clarinet.
Jazz musician Jerry Mulligan does.
Winnipeg, to be a monk,
We'll take a short break and be right back.
Lock it. Wind it.
Well, I think we made it through that one. That was a tough one.
The year 1885 wasn't kind to Johnny McDonald, but it certainly was to Tagwi. They managed to get 40 points on that one and never looked back in a 405 to 255 victory.
Tagwa gets the provincial trophy, and I wonder if Reach for the Top's executive producer, Sandy Stewart, would be so kind as to present the special trophy to Tagwi Secondary School from Cornwall, Ontario. They are the provincial finals. They go to Winnipeg, and against 7 other provincial champions, they vie for the national trophy. We congratulate you. Congratulations to the Tugwas coach, Dan Maloney and Gil Boyce. Please join us next week for the first game of the Nationals on Reach for the Top.
This is CHRO TV, Cable 6.